Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Turning 18, the next part of your journey. We welcome you to this presentation and we hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Debbie Kobayakawa, and I'm a proud mom of two grown sons, Josh and Ian. My older son, Josh, had learning disabilities and graduated from high school with his diploma and an IEP, and is now a proud father of three with a baby on the way any day. And his younger brother, Ian, is why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So Ian is a young man. He is 32 years old. He has autism. He has intellectual disabilities. He's hearing impaired. He's legally blind, and he is living a fantastic life right now. He has been living independently in a Department of Health Developmental Disabilities group home. He moved out when he was 21. He has been working for Safeway for the last 12 years, and he got that job right through his IEP and job training. We're very proud of him for that. He loves to work. He's able to take the bus very independently. He's using not only a cell phone, but a smartphone now, and he has a girlfriend. And we as parents, myself and my husband, his stepdad, we have guardianship. And my lovely co-host, Amanda.
Hi, aloha. My name is Amanda Kaahanui, and I'm the proud mama of a 2022 graduate from Kalaheo High School. Ikaika right now is attending Windward Community College, and he is getting supports from his post-secondary support project. That's from UH Manoa, and also the disability office. Now, while he was in school, we did have a power of attorney, which we don't have while he's in college, but that's okay because we've got other things going on. Right now, he's living at home with us and probably for the foreseeable future. And we're just really proud of this boy. He's come a long way. And so we're going to talk today about the different options that you have as a parent when your child turns 18. And let's get to it.
Okay, Transfer of Rights, Act 182. That sounds a little ominous. What is it? When does it start? What are our options and how do I get help? These are probably some of the most common questions rolling through your heads right now. It may be rolling through them at night when you can't sleep. I know I had a lot of questions, and we're here to help answer some of those questions for you and to give you what those options are. If you look down at the bottom here, we also have in yellow is the link on the Hawaii Public Schools to getting some forms and the guidelines from Chapter 60 as well. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, so what is this transfer of rights, age of majority? Well, there's three ways that we can think about it. One comes from the federal government, one comes from the state of Hawaii, and one comes from parents like you and I. The first one is from IDEA. That's the federal law for special education. And it's basically just saying that they, being the school, have to give you notice when your child is going to turn 18, that the rights are going to transfer from you as the parent to the adult student. From the state of Hawaii, we do have statutes that says the age of majority is when the child turns 18 and then they become an adult student and they have rights for themselves. It's no longer the parent's responsibility to make decisions in the educational setting. And then for parents,
when your child turns 18, they are a legal adult, just like all of our children are. But for parents who have a child with a disability, we need to determine if our child is able to make educational decisions and do they know the impact that those decisions will have on them. And that's kind of that really key and cornerstone piece, is that informed consent or decision-making capacity. And you'll hear those terms a couple times throughout the presentation today. And what kind of help does our child with a disability need to make decisions, and are they able to make any decisions on their own? You may need to get some additional paperwork going between you and the school, and we're going to talk about what those options are and what those things can look like. But as parents, we know our kids best, and so we really are going to take that kind of deeper dive in there to really kind of ask ourselves those questions. Next, please.
Excellent. So the transfer of rights, the SPIN, the Special Parent Information Network, has created an infographic. It's a two-sided document to help you in this process and understand kind of which way you want to go with your kiddo. There are four choices. There are self-representation, a power of attorney for special education, an educational representative, and guardianship. And the first way to kind of drill down into which of those might work for you is to ask yourself the question, is my adult student, is my kiddo able to understand, reason, and act on his or her behalf? And so it's a kind of a black and white question. Can they make decisions for themselves or not? And if it's yes, then you've got two choices there, self-representation or power of attorney. If it's no, you've got educational representative and guardianship. So let's go ahead and take a deeper dive into these.
Okay, I want to make sure that everybody understands no action in this case is in fact an action. And I know that sounds redundant, but if you choose not to do anything and your child turns 18, the educational rights will transfer to them. And there's actually a place on an IEP, I believe it's at the bottom of the transition page where it states the age of majority and that parents have been notified that the rights will transfer to their student. And it's initialed. And I would say about 90% of all the parents that I've ever met had no idea about what that statement said, yet when they went and looked, their initials were right there on the line provided. So it's just kind of one of those things we're not thinking about. So if you don't take an action, the decision is made for you. And that doesn't mean that you can't go out and pursue these other options, but this is not an instance where you really want to do nothing, right? And even if it's my child's going to self-represent, well, that's your action. You've made your decision and you're in control of that decision. You understand that and you're moving forward. Next, we'll go on to what some of the options look like.
Okay, so if your student is not going to be representing themselves in an IEP meeting, which by the way, they can invite you as the parent to their IEP meeting, but that means that they are going to be making the decisions on their own. If it's going to be something a little different, we've got three choices here. There's a power of attorney for special education, an educational representative, and guardianship. So let's go into a power of attorney for special education. A power of attorney for SPED, or POA for SPED, has some key features. Number one, it's a written document. It's executed here in the state of Hawaii. So if you had a POA for SPED from a different state, you'll have to get one for Hawaii as well. You have to identify who the agent is, and the agent could be the parents. It could be a trusted adult. It could be a spouse if they're over 18 and married. It cannot be somebody from the school, though. It is revocable, and you have to say in the power of attorney how it's revocable. So it could say something like, I, Ikaika, will write a letter revoking this power of attorney if I choose to. And so it has to be something just really simple, but saying how it's going to be revoked, whether it's just a verbal or a written. You have to take it to a notary republic, or you have to have two signed witnesses to say that it's not just something that you did between your kiddo and you actually have to take it outside of your family and get it witnessed or notarized. And it's eligible or is working through your child's special education journey. So if your kiddo turns 18 and they're on a diploma track and they graduate at 18 or 19 years old, the power of attorney for special education stops. It does not go after high school. If your kiddo is on a certificate track and they're going forward until the age of 22, or that one day before they turn 22, the power of attorney goes that entire duration, but stops again once they exit special education and the Department of Education.
Great. All right, an educational representative is another option. And for a lot of parents, kind of just dipping your feet, if you will, into this, I won't call it a lake, and I won't call it an ocean, but in the dipping your toe in the water of all of this, you are going to need to have some documentation, although this is a relatively inexpensive and relatively easy, as easy as things kind of get in our world, option for you to exercise, especially if you're not really sure yet. It will buy you some time and it will give you those educational rights so that nothing goes amiss in your meetings and all those types of things while you're still deciding and or getting paperwork together and other things. But an educational representative, you basically just need to get a letter documenting what your child's disability is. And this can be from anyone licensed in the state of Hawaii. So like Amanda mentioned, if you have a out-of-state power of attorney, if you've moved here from another state, you would need to get to become their educational representative, you would want to get some documentation from doctors that are licensed here. It could be their pediatrician, for example. It could be their psychologist or psychiatrist if you're accessing those types of mental health supports. And in some cases, your developmental disabilities division case manager, because in order for them to be receiving that service and to be eligible for their case management, they do need to meet a rather strict criteria, and your case manager has those evaluations and has the assessments provided by the Department of Education, as well as any testing that they may have done. And they would have that information and be able to speak to how the child's disability impacts their decision making. Who can become an educational representative? It can be a parent. It could be a spouse if they're married, which happens. It could be a relative. We know that many of our children actually live with other family members. It can be grandparents, aunties, uncles, and it can also be a surrogate parent. What we want to make sure that gets in the letter is, basic information about the student, their name and date of birth, what school they attend, who the educational representative will be, what their relationship is to that student. And then again, that statement a statement in there that gives information on how the student's disability impacts their educational decisions or their informed consent, right? So for example, my son would know, oh, no more speech means I'm not going to go see Miss Sally anymore in the other room, but I like to go with her because she gives me candy. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to keep my speech services. But maybe Amanda's son, for example, goes, you know what? I've never really liked her. I don't like missing class because I always feel like I'm behind when I get pulled out for speech. So I'm going to say no. I or agree with the school removing my speech language services from my IEP. Not fully understanding what that impact could have on him as a student receiving related services in special education. Next slide, please. And then we have guardianship. So as I shared earlier, this is the choice that my family made. It's a personal choice, and I openly share that. It is a legal proceeding. Guardianship is the only one of the options that we're sharing with you today that actually falls outside of the educational setting. Guardianship is everywhere. So that is for financial, that is for medical, that is for all decision making that requires a legal signature or consent of a legal adult age 18 and over. They are expensive. Most families are sharing typical guardianships are running about $5,000 to $7,000. That's a lot of money for a lot of our families, and especially now in these times when groceries and gas and everything's really expensive. And it can take a lot of time sometimes. We don't know how backed up the courts are, and it would depend on what attorney or lawyer or firm that you decided to go with, whether you're going perhaps with legal aid, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. And we want to make sure that if you do petition the court and when you do show up to court for your hearing, your child must be there. That is a requirement of the court. You also have to file an annual report done by the guardian. I actually finished mine on time for the first time this year in several years. It's generated to you by the family court. I've gotten really smart in the last few years and created a template. I have a hard time handwriting anymore, and you can type that up, and it's it's the same questions it asks, because you are responsible for reporting to the court the condition. They call it a ward. What is the present condition? Where are they living? And one of the questions asks, what is the continued need for guardianship? So I always find that to actually be kind of a really helpful little trip down memory lane, because it kind of forces me to really reflect on why that is, so that I'm always very clear in my mind and in my heart, because I think that's the place that it's the hardest. In my heart, I know it's the best choice for our son and our family at this time, and continues to be. My son votes, he always has. He chose to register for a party different from his mother's, and I may not have liked that. I did forbid him from spending large amounts of time with his grandparents unsupervised, but just joking. But he has those choices. I will share too that guardianship is the most restrictive out of all the options that we're sharing today. And the push in the disability world right now is for what's called self-determination or self-representation. So I do my very best to always let my son's voice be heard, even when it's different than my choice would be, as long as it isn't harmful to him. And I've even been able to, we've even been able to get an advanced healthcare directive for Ian in the last year or so. And we read all through that, did it all together. Yes, my signature is the legal signature, but we did in fact have him sign the document too. And he knows that he was part of that decision making. Some of the things that you are going to want to consider is you are going to need to, you have to prove as a person petitioning the court, right, for guardianship of this adult. So it's on you as the person petitioning to provide that documentation of either intellectually incapacitated, how their disability impacts their decision making and their informed consent, and those, how their disability impacts them and why it is that they're incapacitated. That would be in any evaluations that you've had or assessments conducted by the Department of Education, and also any private assessments from private sources, and or any evaluations conducted by the Department of Health for your developmental disability case management. I do want to caution parents, being disabled and being incapacitated are two completely different things. And it's up to a judge, and that's why it is a legal proceeding, to really make that determination based on the evidence provided to them at that day. For example, you could spend $7,000, go to court, and the judge might not grant it. But let's say you still feel very strongly that it's needed. So maybe you're going to get some other information, or maybe things happen down the road and your child is now, or your adult child has maybe gotten in trouble with the law or gotten in trouble with credit and money. You can always bring back information and petition the court again. And the judge is going to ask your child if they agree to you being their guardian. If they're able to speak, then a verbal response, and then any other type of communication system they use, whether it's ASL or augmented. And then the other consideration, and I know this is a hard one, is who's going to come after you? Because if you get guardianship, right, your adult child really doesn't have the legal say so when something happens to you and or you and your spouse. In our family, it's myself and my son's stepdad, not his biological dad. Who's our successor guardian? Because you always want to have that kind of waiting in the wings, and you also want to make sure that you talk to that person and that they're aware that you've asked them to do this on your behalf. So a lot of information about guardianship. It is something that a lot of families need to really carefully consider. And I just want to say that no professional should tell you you must get it or you need to get it. It is a personal decision. You could have a highly impacted, very disabled adult child, and you decide not to do it. Nobody can force you to do it, and you don't have to do it. So just want to make sure you know that. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, so we've given you the 4 options, right, for when your child turns 18. But then the big question is, how do I decide what's right for my family? Well, as Deb said, this is really a personal decision. It's not something that somebody should tell you what you need to do, but you can ask people, about their opinions, about their expertise, about what they've heard from other people, talk to other families, get in touch with support groups, look online, check out social media, get a bunch of information together and start really thinking about this. But we want you to be thinking about it before they turn 18. Now, if your kiddo is 19 or 20 and you still haven't thought about this or talked to your school about what category they're under, then start now, do it now. But if your kiddo is young, maybe they're elementary school or middle school or just starting out high school, then you want to have these conversations early and think about what's going to happen, because guardianship, as Deb said, is expensive and it takes time, whereas the other options can be done a lot quicker. So think about it before they turn 18, and also talk to your kiddo about it. If your child is able to have conversations with you, make some decisions on their own, ask them what they want to do. Hey, do you want to be sitting in the IEP? We will be there still. You can still invite us, but it's going to be your decision on if you keep that speech service or not, or accommodations and modifications, and what your goals are going to be. That's going to be on you. Or would you like assistance and help with that? Now, we can help you as making your own decision, or we can help you by making that decision with you or for you. So talk to them, see what they're feeling, see, um, you know, maybe other family members as well. But really, it is a family decision.
Absolutely. And so I do know some families through work I'm doing with, Special Olympics and others, so a little bit older than me, uh, whose children they've applied or petitioned the court, made the decision, their child's maybe in their 30s, even late 30s. They've decided that based on information they have now that's relevant, whatever that might be. It could be medical reasons. It could be a history of just poor decision making, and now they've ruined their credit. It can be all kinds of factors, but you can still go and petition the court and ask, to get the guardianship. It's not a, well, if you didn't do it at 18 or 17 or 20. However, you're going to need to have more documentation because a judge is there again to look at the law, right? And the legal definition of incapacitated. So you have your school records, and if your individual still has like case management with the Developmental Disabilities Division, what other documentation and information do you have to share with the court? You would want to bring things like letters from collection agencies, or, hopefully not, but maybe even run-ins, with the law, types of things. Because sometimes our kids, things like a minor shoplifting, but now it's become a habit, or, whatever that looks like. Those could all be things that now tip the balance in the other direction and going to court, to do it. As we said earlier, but I'll just say it again, the only option that covers everything educational and outside the educational setting is guardianship. All the other options we talked about are only for education in Hawaii public schools, right? Not for private schools. It does cover charter. It does not cover college. Mom and dad are not, even with guardianship, the disability counselor is not going to meet with you unless there's really extenuating circumstances while you're, that doesn't mean you can't prepare them. You can give them index card and all those things, but that's an adult setting. We also want to remind you that unless that guardianship is expensive. So if it is something that you're thinking looks like a possibility, your family's in kind of agreement, everything, start saving now. And then also maybe look into legal aid, and we'll give you some info in the next slide or two on how to contact them. Okay.
Okay, so speaking of how to find help,
We have
Debbie,
Yeah, Ho'omana is Parents Supporting Parents. I'm one of our two co-facilitators. So we are both parents of adult children who have a disability. And Ho'omana is a DOE funded program. We are funded through Windward District. Autism DES out here saw a real need for that. And we have been so grateful. We've been operating for almost 5 years. And because of COVID and going virtual, we now have stretched our reach, not just out of Windward District, but all over Oahu. And we actually have some neighbor island families as well who are able to join us on Zoom. And we do our best to bring in a guest speaker once a month. And then our other two are just talk story. So we'd love to have you join us, check it out. And I'll hand it over to Spin and Amanda.
so SPIN stands for the Special Parent Information Network. We've been around for about 38, 39 years now. We are also funded by the Department of Education, and we are here to help families navigate the educational system. So we're here to provide information and resources. We have a conference annually. We have a newsletter and e-blasts, and just resources for families to be able to understand what your rights are and how to help your keiki get through their education with success. Another option for families is LDAH. That stands for Leadership and Disability and Achievement Hawaii. They are the Parent Training and Information Center for Hawaii, and they can help you with, like, I don't know what to do with my IEP, or I'm having trouble with my IEP, or I don't know what the next steps are. They really can help support families. I use them multiple times over my son's educational career because we don't know what we don't know. And as our kids move through the system, their needs change, and our needs change as parents, and the information that we need changes as well. So they're an organization that I have used for many, many years.
And I just want to second that. I worked for them for several years, but I didn't know what I didn't know until I started working there. And then there was a whole lot of things there. And they also provide what we call technical support. So it can just be, anyone in the office will pick up. They'll kind of give you some next steps or some suggestions, and then you can circle back to them after your meeting or whatever's kind of going on and do a little debrief. And it may be a different person that picks up the phone. They'll have some, not very detailed, but they'll have notes in there and be able to walk you through it. So it can be a great resource for families who just need that someone to talk to right before they go into their meetings and other things. So, and then Legal Aid Society, which we mentioned, the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii does provide free legal aid, and they do, as far as we know, they do represent families who are petitioning to get guardianship. They do have an income-based criteria. My suggestion would be apply right now and get through that, so that if you do in fact meet their criteria, you can get on the wait list, because as you might imagine, there are quite a few folks waiting to have free legal help. But that can be an excellent resource for families, especially when it's really cost prohibitive, but you feel strongly that guardianship is really necessary. Then we also have Department of Education. There can be some resources there. Your care coordinator, my care coordinator for my son back then was an excellent resource and gave me good information. It might also be your special education chair or department head. It could also be our administrators. Some of our vice principals, have worked their way up from in the field in the classroom. And then sometimes our student services coordinators. It's just going to vary from campus to campus.
Yep. Even your transition teacher, if you have a transition teacher at your high school, they might be a great resource for you to talk about these different options. And then there's also the Footsteps to Transition website. This is a DOE sponsored event that happens annually on the island of Oahu. They've also gone virtual, so now it's extended out to our neighbor islands as well. And that's a great place for you to find more information about age of majority, healthcare decisions, educational decisions, work, college, all of the things that we have to think about as our kiddo moves from high school to adult life. So please do check them out.
Great. And here's where you can find us. So Amanda and I are both mamas, and we also are both professionals working in this field. So it's fair to say we have some experience. We certainly don't know it all, but if we don't know it, we know someone who does. So we will track it down, put you in touch with them, do our very best to find you answers to your questions. And also just to listen, because sometimes that's just what a parent needs, is someone just to listen.
Absolutely, Debbie. So please do jot our numbers down, jot our emails down, reach out to us anytime. We're always happy to chat with a family. If you know somebody who's going through this process, refer them to us, or call us and get information so that you can talk story with them. We're always here to lend a helping hand. We thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, we thank you so much for joining us today on this presentation of turning 18 and the age of majority. We hope we've answered some of your questions. Not going to be all of them, but we hope we're helping and guiding you on this journey. Mahalo for joining us.
Mahalo.